Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank you and the ranking member for holding this hearing, and I really want to thank the witnesses for being here today. Thank you for sharing your expertise and perspectives with us. I want to start with a question to you, Dr. Parker. Congress created the National AI Initiative Office to improve efficiency and help federal and local governments, researchers, business leaders, and other stakeholders collaborate on AI issues. You were the first National AI Director, but that position has remained vacant since you left the post in August. As the former director, why is it important that we fill this position?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. The National AI Initiative Act of 2020 set up three very important goals for our nation about us leading the world in AI research and development, about making sure that we also lead in the development of trustworthy AI in both development and use of trustworthy AI in both the public and private sectors, and to make sure that we're educating and training our workforce to participate in these AI activities. It also put in charge of these activities the National AI Initiative Office, and that is in addition to a coordination role among all the federal agencies and what they are doing in the AI space. So given the magnitude of the importance of the National AI Initiative as set forth by Congress, I think it's imperative that we have leadership in the White House that is overseeing these activities, that's pushing forth the innovation and the research that we need to address many of the kinds of concerns that have been raised in this panel so far, to make sure we're training and educating our workforce and leading new initiatives across the government that can help advance these, and the governance issues that we're addressing today. So that leadership vacuum, I think, has contributed to a number of challenges that we have across the board in terms of being able to implement these good policies that are in place.
Thank you very much for that. To Mr. Arriga, AI researchers have highlighted some of the potential public safety risks posed by AI systems. These safety concerns include AI systems providing dangerous information to bad actors or potentially acting in unpredictable ways that run counter to the intent of designers. Increasing the safety and predictability of AI systems requires more technical research into the methods used to create these systems. What can the federal government do to support or coordinate research that would help improve the safety of AI systems?
Thank you, Senator Hassan. In our AI accountability framework, we laid out specific governance practices where agency can adopt to really consider, for example, is AI even necessary in this particular use case? And in fact, if it is, what are some of the organizational structure that are in place to assess the legality, the compliance factor, as well as driving some of these inherently governmental function? So we go back to our framework itself that lays out not only governance, but looking at data, performance, as well as the important topic of continuous monitoring when it comes to AI.
Thank you. Another question for Dr. Parker. Congress created the National Artificial Intelligence Strategy, as you noted, to establish goals, priorities, and metrics for guiding and evaluating interagency work on AI. That strategy focuses on things like AI research, investments, and workforce development. However, the strategy does not currently require a strategic level focus on safeguards to prevent AI from being used in a manner that harms our country or society. Can you speak to how a focus on AI safeguards could be incorporated into the National AI Strategy?
Yes, thank you, Senator. I think it's true. If you look at, say, the role of the National AI Initiative Office, it's to oversee the research and the education and the coordination, but it does not provide a role for that governance. And so we need an approach to be able to govern that responsible use of AI. I think one thing that could be done is to have kind of a two-part approach. One is to have chief AI officers at every agency that are responsible for these kinds of activities within each individual agency. This has been a challenge because even in the Executive Order 13960 that requires for agencies to identify a responsible AI official, that has not happened well. And so we don't have a single point of contact or a single responsible person at the agencies that oversees these activities. But agencies all have different missions. And so in order to coordinate in a consistent way across all all of the federal agencies. I think the creation of something like a Chief AI Officers Council that's led by OMB and OSDP's National AI Initiative Office, perhaps with representation from GSA's Community Center of Excellence in AI, as well as their Community of Practice, would provide the expertise across the federal agencies to coordinate these processes and provide the leadership for the government as a whole.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, when you think about emerging technologies generally, we tend to focus on the potential of the technology without thinking about the necessary safeguards, in my view, early enough. And I think a lot of what you've heard around the dais this morning is concerns about the safety issues and the way that AI can impact our democracy, but we need to be thoughtful about how we can actually address those issues in a way that is consistent with our values. So I appreciate your answer. I do have another question for you, Dr. Parker, on deep fakes, which are obviously images and videos that are generated artificially, and they're becoming increasingly realistic. Last year, malicious actors deployed a deep fake video of Ukrainian President Zelensky telling Ukrainian soldiers to lay down their arms and surrender to Russia, for example. As artificial intelligence advances, deep fakes like the Zelensky one will become harder to identify and debunk. And I'm concerned that in the hands of our adversaries, deep fakes pose a really significant threat. How do you assess the federal government's current efforts to identify and debunk deep fakes? How can the federal government prepare for a future with extremely realistic deep fakes?
Thank you, Senator. I'm a technologist, and so I think often of these challenges from a research perspective and what we can do in terms of coming up with new approaches that help us address these kinds of challenges. There are some activities in the research space to do things like watermarking that can allow you to determine how a particular piece of data or an image or a video, where it came from, what we call the provenance of it, what its history is. And so those kinds of approaches, if we could watermark these kinds of images and content in a way that allows us to trace back its origins and where it came from, and is it real or is it not real? That is a step forward to giving us the technical ability to address these kinds of challenges. On top of that, of course, are the governance approaches, and frankly, I did not do a lot of work myself in government work in the governance of deep fakes, but I think the technical approaches that I mentioned will help, and so certainly an increased attention to those kinds of technologies is helpful.
Well, thank you, and I'm over time. I will follow up with just a question. One of the questions I think we'll face, Mr. Chair, is how does the government work with the private sector and academia to try to make sure that we're harnessing various ideas and approaches here. So thank you very much.